The morning was quite rainy, but that didn't stop me from climbing mountains of Andorra. As I walked towards the city border, I caught a glimpse of the mountain ranges ahead. It was clear that the climb would be over 1000 meters. Andorra la Vella itself is 1000 meters above sea level, but the mountains surrounding it are over 2000 meters high. After a little wandering, I managed to find the stairs up from the city. I must admit that such well-maintained trails are not my thing, but I knew that such a surface wouldn't last long. Actually, you can go up from the city using these lifts. That's why I was initially confused by the signs, because they took me to these lifts and not to a traditional trailhead or stairs. Soon I came to more familiar trail surface that led up the mountain. The trail infrastructure in Andorra is really excellent. Lots of signs, trail markings, bridges, some of them even with anti-slip elements. It was clear that the weather wouldn't be kind to me, so I used the shelter to dress more appropriately. I put on boots, rain pants and a rain jacket, and studied my planned route on the map. The rocks were slippery in places, but the beginning of the trail wasn't difficult. The trail was at times considerably wider than the GR11, which meant that there were a lot of hikers here. Rockfalls are not uncommon here either. These stone structures near the trail are designed to provide shelter from sudden storms. Yet it turned out that the water from the clear spring was not drinkable. I wonder where it came from. In any case, I thought that with a filter it probably wouldn't be a problem. Despite the initial forecasts, the rain didn't stop. At altitude of 1950 meters, it was clear that after about 100 meters there would be something like a meadow. But when I got there, a very strong wind that broke through my layers of clothing pushed me back. Hiding behind a pile of big stones, I put on a thin down jacket under my rain jacket, also a beanie and gloves. After climbing more than 1000 meters, I start to feel a little pain in my knee. Above 2000 meters altitude, nature became more rugged, and snow-capped peaks were visible above. Despite the fact that mountain springs were very clear, I wouldn't recommend drinking them without filter in any case, because there was animal feces everywhere. How can you hike here with light shoes when everything is flooded? The mountain hut wasn't far anymore. On the other hand, the Prat Pass was snowy and covered in fog. If the snow could still be overcome, it was harder to deal with the fog. Without seeing where you're going, you could easily fall into the gorge, so crossing the pass didn't seem realistic at that moment. The refugi even had a shelter for horses. Down there was Andorra la Vella. I couldn't stay calm when I looked at the pass. I had crampons and trekking poles with me. That should probably have been enough to get over, but the fog was still a big obstacle. The refugi was very well equipped. It was possible to light a stove, firewood and even toilet paper were provided. I was very impressed by the Andorrians' advancement in this sphere. I decided to have a lunch at the hut. And while eating, I noticed a little sunshine through the hut window. I quickly packed and ran outside. The wind had driven away the clouds above the Prat pass, and it was clear that this window of opportunity would not last long. It was now or never. In addition, not very old footprints could be seen in the distance, so someone had probably walked here early in the morning when the snow surface was still hard. But I soon realized that the snow was still too deep, and I would not be able to go along the usual path. So I changed tactics and went in the detour through less snowy areas. In the distance, the hut where I had lunch a moment ago could be seen. The end was of course the most difficult, because it was slippery and my feet were getting stuck in deep snow. Despite that, I didn't put my crampons on, because there was very little left to the top. And the footprints in front of me showed that someone had already crossed the path in the morning today. The view was simply fantastic. The GoPro battery was running out, so I hurried down to the next hut to change it. I didn't want to do it on the pass, because there was a terrible cold wind that froze my fingers. In the distance, you could see that all the GR11 passes were completely covered in snow and fog. Meanwhile, I had reached the next refugi. This hut even had a second level inside. It had also a stove and first aid supplies. Meanwhile, my knee was starting to hurt more and more. It was clear that I had to leave the mountains as quickly as possible. The most direct route to Andorra la Vella was there, but I decided to take a detour, and thus reduce the steep climb down. So, to reduce the strain on my aching knee, all the small paths have turned into rivers. I have to go there, but the road continues along the mountain ridge. I could only hope that at some point it would start to go down the mountain. Soon I was rewarded with another enchanting view. There were even fish visible in the lake. Although they didn't eat the cookies I threw them. I sat by the pond for half an hour, watching the fish and the mountain. I probably would have sat longer, but the navigation shows that it was more than 3 hours to the city, and I didn't feel like staying up here in the dark would be a great idea. Across the meadow, another refuge was visible. And how to get over here? You can't climb in that rock because it's wet and slippery and face it down. On the other hand, it's deep at the top. I managed to get over, but I almost fell into the icy stream. I didn't go inside this hut because I had to hurry to the city. By looking back at the Prat Premier Pass, it was clear that there was nothing to do there in the afternoon. The pass was covered in deep fog and clouds. While walking along the path, I accidentally ran into a herd of marmots. It's possible that they didn't hear me approaching because of the strong wind. Of course, when they saw me, they quickly ran into their caves. There were also a group of marmots further up to the Cabana de Perfita. One marmot even crawled out of the hut, which suggests that they actually live there. The hiking season hasn't started yet, so it's nice that the marmots in these areas had made a use of the tourist infrastructure during the winter. Is that not a familiar marking? There were a lot of funny looking trees in this forest. Maybe some kind of magnetic fields or something else that makes trees grow in such an unnatural shape. The first time I was in Andorra, I got stuck in the mountains and tried to get down such a vertical cliffs. The river that I jumped over at the top of near Refugi, as it falls down the gorge, gains strength, and it's no longer possible to jump over it. The scenery became more greener and greener, and in some of them horses were grazing. In addition, I had already had the idea to climb here tomorrow and feed the marmots with vegetables and fruits. In the distance, I could see the Col de Jovel mountain, which I climbed for the first time when I was in Andorra several years ago. The signpost shows that it was an hour to go to Escaldes. So ahead are the Col de Jovel rocks that I once tried to climb down. Another hut on the side of the trail is being renovated. The trail became more and more civilized each moment. Unfortunately, my mountain boots were completely unsuitable for such wet, smooth rocks. And now I understood why local hikers in the lower areas wear white trail running shoes. Soon the Serpentine Road was here and the city was not far away. The last steep section of the stone road was a real test. It felt like I had skates on my feet. Even on the mountain road, cars were parked in traffic jams, so for me it was easy, so I could cross the road. But it's not safe with heavy traffic. Well, the last few steps to the city. At the Repsol gas station, I bought a sugar-free orange drink. After the hard hike, it tasted fantastic.